Welcome back to Misunderstood with Rachel Uchitel. I'm so excited about today's guest, a retired NBA champion whose 14-year career included the Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Lakers, the Los Angeles Clippers, just to name a few. He is a leading voice on social justice, a proud father, successful business owner, and the host of the podcast All the Smoke. Please welcome Matt Barnes to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I mentioned to my ex-husband, Matt is his name also, that I was talking to you today. And he is a huge sports fanatic. He knows everything about sports. I know basically nothing about sports. And I asked if he knew who you were. And he's like, of course I know who he is. And he's like, but Rachel, he's really hot-headed. And, and I said, really, why do you think that is? And he's like, well, it's really crazy that he's so hot-headed because he's had it so easy his whole life. And I thought that was a really interesting comment. And I said, what do you mean he's had it so easy? He's like, well, he's played for the Lakers and he has a big paycheck and all this stuff. And I wonder if you get that a lot. Do people misunderstand your past?
Definitely. But I'm to the point now. I just turned 43 yesterday. I necessarily don't mind people who have an opinion on me that don't know me, because everyone's going to have an opinion, whether it's warranted or not. I leave that to them. That's not my issue. But, I had a very rough childhood. Both my parents were functioning drug addicts. I grew up in abuse, violence, drugs, bounced around as a child. But luckily I was someone who was able to, turn all those negative things that happened to me in my childhood as fire to continue to motivate me and keep an edge about me that allowed me to live out my dream and win a championship and now be a father and do a ton of other stuff that I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I wanted to get into, because I think it's so impressive who you've become. I wanted to get into your pre-NBA career and talk about your childhood. What was it like growing up in a mixed race household?
I didn't really have any issues with the mixed race until I moved from the Bay Area to Sacramento. My mom being a full Italian, my dad being African American. It was never an issue when I lived in the Bay because it was very diverse, multicultural, a lot of people who looked like me. When we moved to Sacramento, because of some street stuff my dad had got into, although we moved to a neighborhood that was similar, and when I say this, people kind of look at me crazy because I'm half Italian, but my parents started putting me in all predominantly white schools, 95, 97, 98% white. And I never understood, or like, why can't I go to school with my kids in the neighborhood? Or why can't I go to school with my basketball friends? And my parents just weren't having it. They always put me in white schools. And I think they probably thought it was because it was a better education to give me a better opportunity to succeed. So I found when we moved to Sacramento and I started getting put in these white schools, that's when the biracial issue kind of started happening. And it was the first time I was around predominantly white kids, and the word nigger started coming up a lot, and I wouldn't understand because I'm third grade this time, so maybe 8 or 9 years old, why these kids wouldn't let me play kickball, wouldn't let me play wall ball, wouldn't let me play foursquare, wouldn't let me play basketball, wouldn't let me play nothing with them ever. And and it was really frustrating, and because it was the color of my skin. And then some of them started getting brave enough, like I said, to start actually calling me nigger. So it was my first time about 9 years old starting to really experience racism. And as a 9-year-old, you're heartbroken and confused because, I never really saw color or understood color. Because like I said, where I first grew up, everyone, was similar to my tone and color never came up. We just all played together. But so I would go home and be disheartened and probably sometimes crying. And obviously my mom would do the mom thing and kind of shelter me. But my dad's like, no, you have my permission. If they call you nigger, you can fight them. And I'm like, oh, so now I have permission. So from there on, it wasn't something I was proud of, but it was a means to fight ignorance. And I had to face it at a young age. So starting in third grade, I started fighting. Every time someone said that, they would have to pay for it. And that lasted probably third grade, a little bit of fourth grade, and then kids stopped. And, they started accepting me, and I excelled in a bunch of different sports. And, to this day, I still have friends from third and fourth grade. Um, and although it didn't start well, I could say 30 plus years later, it's great.
Talk to me about what happened at Del Campo High School. There was a mannequin hanging from
Yeah.
a noose there. How did that affect you? What happened there?
Well, I was a senior, so I was about 3 months away from going to UCLA,
Mhm.
and my sister was a sophomore, and there was a kid that just kept harassing her, and it kind of started off mild, and it continued to get serious, and then he started throwing racial slurs at her, and I would never be able to see the kid because we just did not never saw him. And then one day he called her nigger and spit in her hair, and it was right before class got out. So as soon as class came out, she came and found me because I was done for the day and she still had another class. I was about to go home. So she and two or three of her girlfriends come up to me, tell me what's going on. I still see the spit in her hair, and this kid just, unfortunately for him, happened to walk by. So, as a big brother, I did what I was supposed to do and protect her and send a message. And I did that. Got taken to the principal's office after that and explained what happened. Again, spit still in my sister's hair. And this man sat in front of me and told me, "Nah, I don't believe you. His dad's a prominent lawyer in the city. He wasn't racist. And he, obviously, this kid's over here crying because I just put hands on him. But he's just like, I never said that. And I'm not like that. And again, I'm a 5-star athlete in football and basketball, have scholarships to every school in the country, and I'm about to literally leave for UCLA. And it's just like, I'm not on bully time. Like, I'm literally protecting my sister. So they didn't see it that way. I get to spend it for a week. Um, Probably 3 or 4 days into my suspension, the KKK comes and vandalizes my school, burns down bathrooms, swastikas everywhere, die nigger.
Mm.
They hung a mannequin. We had a big oak tree in front of our school, and they hung a mannequin in the oak tree with my football jersey on it that said "Die Nigger," and that changed me. Again, I was very proud to be up to that point biracial. I had faced some racism when I first got to Sacramento, and then nearly 9 years later, at 17 or 18, I faced a huge, obviously, obstacle, and that was for the first time in my life where I realized, although I'm very proud to be Italian and Black, that the world saw me as a Black man. So not only did they vandalize my school, we later found out that there was a hit on my life. So I had to move to a different neighborhood, and we had around the clock security for about a month, provided by the NAACP. And it was just a unfortunate situation. And again, up to that point, I had such a great time in high school. Still one of the greatest times of my life was being in high school. But it really hurt me that after all that hard work I had put in as a student, all the hard work I put in as an athlete, lettering in 3 different sports and winning league championships and doing all this thing, the one time I really needed the school to understand and hear where I was coming from and have my back, they didn't. So that was a kind of a wake up call and a harsh reality of the world we live in. But again,
Mhm.
instead of using that as something to cry about or pout about, it just added fuel to the fire. And, I just kept that tucked away and, went on with my college career.
Did they ever catch those kids?
It was weird. It's crazy you asked that question because obviously the one kid that I got into it went to school with me. But they said he didn't do it. But someone literally just told me that it was 4 guys and 3 out of 4 of them are dead now. 2 overdoses and something happened to another one, and then they don't know what happened with the fourth kid. But it was crazy because like someone literally just told me this like a month ago because I obviously have never forgot it, but I don't let it weigh on my mind. But someone
Sure.
literally just told me about a month ago that 3 out of the 4 kids that were responsible are now passed, and they don't know where the fourth guy is.
Wow. Crazy. So, all right, moving on. So you ended up going to UCLA after that. Yeah. And
Yep.
what was next for you there? How was that experience?
UCLA was amazing. It was really my first time kind of out of a small town. I was in Sacramento from 9 to 18, and There's a small, slower moving town to throwing into Westwood, which is Hollywood, Hollywood borders our school. So I went from, they call Sacramento a cow town to basically Hollywood.
Mhm.
But it was amazing. Just the opportunity to go to UCLA with all the tradition and the history. And actually, my first year at UCLA was 1998, and there was an NBA lockout. So there was no other basketball being played besides our basketball. So we used to have like Shaq and Kobe and all the LA stars that, movie stars that you would see at a Laker game. They started coming to our game, and I'm like, oh shit, this is what college is like. This is what UCLA is like. So it was an eye-opening experience. It was an amazing experience. And again, 4 years at UCLA was some of the best times of my life. Have friends still to this day from there that I talk to daily. Opened up a lot of doors, and it provided me an opportunity to have a chance to play in the NBA.
Right. So you started, let's see, with the Clippers. Was that your first team?
So I bounced around early on. Second round pick who got cut. Um, Started in the G League. Played well there. Got an opportunity to play for the Clippers, and then kind of got on this carousel where played well enough to stick. But then, my first 4 years, I wasn't given very many opportunities to actually show what I can do. And there's so many guys in the NBA. The average career is 3.5 years, 3.5 years. So I'm coming up on year 4 and not really getting an opportunity to play, and just hoping for that opportunity. But at the same time, my brother is an up and coming football star. Football is my first sport. I was the number one football receiver in the country my senior year.
Mhm.
So I kind of started thinking, all right, well, if this basketball thing doesn't work out, maybe football does. So this summer, going into my 4th season, doing basketball training in the morning and football training in the evening, because not really knowing what was going to happen, what opportunities would present themselves. My agent at the time had found about 6 or 7 NFL teams were willing to give me an open tryout. So I told them that I wanted to give basketball one last shot, which I had a training camp opportunity coming up. And I said, if this training camp opportunity doesn't work, let's try to jump to football. Thankfully, that opportunity was with the Golden State Warriors in 2006. And it's a 15-man roster. They had 17 guarantees already and 20 guys coming to camp. So literally, I was the 21st guy coming to camp. And, the coach, let me back up a little bit. So I got called. I was living in Sacramento at the time in the off season, and a former UCLA teammate of mine, Baron Davis, said, hey, we're having an open gym if you want to come by. So the Bay Area is about an hour and some change from Sacramento. I drove down there, played really well, not knowing the head coach was watching the whole time. So after we get done playing, head coach comes down, puts his arm around me like, hey, son, how you doing? Like the way you played today. What are you doing this season? I was just like, to be honest with you, I don't know. Camp is around the corner. I don't really have any offers. Um, he's like, well, hey, I can't promise you a roster spot, but I promise you, if you come and compete like you did today, I'll give you an opportunity. So
Mhm.
again, there's 15 roster spots. They already have 17 guaranteed contracts. So they already have to cut 2 guys, and they had 3 more guys in camp. So I came in camp, played really well, and found my way to a guaranteed roster spot. So that was in the 2006 season. And although I came in the NBA in 2002, 2006 was when I really felt like I got my first opportunity to show that I can play this league. And, when that opportunity was given, I didn't give it back and ran with it.
Mhm.
And from there is really where I felt like, year 4, year 5 was where I felt like, okay, I'm in here now, and now I can make some noise. So, after that season, you know, played well and was able to just maintain contracts for the next, I guess, 10 years after that.
So then you went from there to the Suns, then to the Magic, then you were with the Lakers. How was that?
The opportunity to play with the franchise, some people look at it like, hey, for instance, Kobe was able to play 20 years with the Lakers, and
Mhm.
that's everybody's goal. But at the same time, I realized early that wasn't going to be my path in this league, and I was okay with that. So I just took every opportunity as a opportunity, understanding not only is it a basketball opportunity, but at the same time, I'm going to these teams And I'm always playing, I'm always starting, or I'm always the first guy coming off the bench. So it's also business opportunities to start meeting the people who are sitting in the front rows at these games, because those are normally CEOs, business owners, all kinds of different opportunities. So I started thinking then, let me just meet these guys. Let me shake their hand, because I was, like your ex-husband thought, I was labeled the bad guy, and I
Mhm.
was okay with that. But at the same time, I think when I'm able to show people who I really am, they're pleasantly surprised, like, oh shit, like you're not a thug, you're not this, you're not that. I'm just like, no, I'm just, I came from a rough upbringing, but I have a degree, educated, and I'm just a competitor. And
Mhm.
so I was just always kind of surprising people when I would meet them, and well, here, give me, take my number down, and come to the office. So let's go to lunch. And it was just, people really started kind of taking a liking to me, and again, use those opportunities from playing for different teams to meet different types of people in different types of fields, and just kind of carried on through that through my career. Obviously, being a Laker was a dream come true. I was a huge Laker fan growing up, and there's an infamous moment kind of in basketball aura, and it was just the 13-year anniversary the other day. I think it was March 7th, 2010, where I got into it with Kobe, and I faked the ball in his face, and it
Mhm.
went viral, and it's still viral 13 years later. At the end of that season, so the Lakers go on to the finals. We play the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Finals. I'm in Orlando at that time, and we end up losing. So the offseason, the Lakers beat the Celtics in the finals. So that offseason, I'm a free agent. And I thought I was going to stay in Orlando, but then they weren't really offering what I thought I was worth. So I started talking to the Miami Heat. And out of nowhere, I get a call from a number that I don't recognize. And if you know me, I rarely answer my phone, even if I see the name on the phone. I'm just not a phone person. I happen to answer this call, and it's Kobe. And at first, I'm like, yeah, right. Who the fuck is this? He's like, nah, it's really me. So he and I, kind of start talking back and going back and forth. And, I was congratulating him on winning the championship. And he asked me what I was doing next year, and I kind of told him, like, hey, I'm talking to the Heat and the Magic right now, and he's like, what do you think about being a Laker? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I think? I mean, Lakers are my favorite team. It'd be an honor. He's just like, and he literally told me, he's like, anyone crazy enough to fuck with me is crazy enough to play with me. I want you to be a Laker. And I was like, shit, I want to be a Laker. And literally 4 days later, I was a Laker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story. So, all right. So after the Lakers, you went on to play again for the Clippers.
Uh-huh.
And so talk to me about that for a little bit, because most people know about Donald Sterling and that whole
Yeah.
saga. But for people that don't know about that scandal, I'm going to let you fill them in a little bit on that, because they just know about Vistaviano, I think.
All right.
What was it like, first of all, working for Donald Sterling?
It was interesting. I mean, obviously, Donald had a history of discriminating against minorities. He's a big real estate guy out here in LA, and just kind of had a history of discrimination. But
But was he like that with you personally?
no, not at all. Like I said, I never had any issues. Always respectful. I was always respectful to him. When I saw him, I spoke. I was actually more kind of friendly with his wife, Shelly. Shelly was very nice and kind, and always, sought me out to come talk to me and ask me how things were going.
Mhm.
So when I signed there, I'm not necessarily thinking about Donald Sterling, and I don't think Chris Paul or Blake Griffin or DeAndre or anyone else on our team was necessarily thinking about Donald Sterling. I think what we're thinking about is the Clippers have been the doormat of the NBA pretty much for their entire existence. We have a really good team, and we feel like we can change the narrative on this team. We felt like we had a championship type of team, and we definitely did. And we took a lot of pride in trying to, again, remove the stigma from the team. The Clippers were the doormat of the NBA. And for the first time in their franchise history, we won the Pacific Division title, 50 plus wins. One of the best teams in the league for about a 2 or 3 year run. And that kind of came boiling to a head. Was it 2015, I think, where Donald Sterling was caught, or was recorded by his side chick.
So, time
Um,
out. Did you used to see
oh,
Vistaviano at the games?
no one can stand this. I mean, I don't even like talking bad about people, but just no one liked her. She thought that she owned the Staples Center. She thought that she was a part of the organization. She used to walk around and strut like her shit didn't stink, and just no one liked her at
Did,
all.
did they
And we,
know? Did they
no,
know
everyone
she
knew.
was?
Everyone knew what
They
was
and
going
they
on.
knew she was the mistress.
Everyone, he used to sit her next to, he used to sit her courtside at games while he was sitting with his wife. He would just sit her somewhere else. So it wasn't a secret. It was, and I'm no one to judge because at the time I wasn't perfect and I haven't been perfect in my relationships, but it was just blatant, wild, outlandish disrespect. And I think
Yeah.
she fed on that power too. Like she liked people talking about her and she liked kind of being the center of attention. So I say all that to say that kind of came to a boiling head the
Mhm.
first round of the playoffs that year, where she recorded him saying some, unfriendly and racial things about minorities, particularly Magic Johnson,
Mhm.
and that she released the tape to TMZ. And we're in the midst of a tough battle against a young Golden State Warriors team. So to put it kind of in context, we end up beating this Warriors team, but that next year is when they went on their dynasty run and they won 4 championships in the next 8 years. So this is we knew at the time, like, hey, this team is next. This is the young Steph Curry, young Klay Thompson, young Draymond Green. They're a young, hungry team. So this tape is, launched in the middle of a playoff series, and we're like, fuck, like, what are we supposed to do? And so now everyone's telling us, and this is kind of the beginning of social media, kind of not just being showing off your money or what you're doing. People are kind of starting to speak out against things, particularly athletes. So now we have the whole world, telling us what to do, or you guys shouldn't play, and your owner is racist, and he's treating you guys like slaves, and this, and that. So now
Oh,
everyone has an opinion on what we should be doing. And although we agree, we felt that, obviously what he did was wrong. And again, with
mhm.
my past, I knew he was wrong, but it didn't really bother me. I'm just like, him saying nigger or him saying this or him saying that, like, that doesn't bother. Like, I almost lost my life. You know what I mean? So this is, the way people talk or people think. Like, I was just thinking to myself, like, he's not the only owner that thinks this way. He's just the only one dumb enough to get recorded doing it. So
Yeah.
again, it just kind of puts a strain on our team. Some people want to sit out. Some people want to play. If we do sit out, does it count as a loss? How long do we sit out? Is he going to be fired? So there's just so much unknown that we just decided to try to play through it. Fortunately enough, we were able to play through it. We were able to beat the Warriors. But then I just think his dark cloud was looming over our team constantly. So it became less about basketball as we continue to win and just more about what was going to happen to Donald Sterling. Like, how does he still have this team? And everyone's outraged. But at the same time, although he was the one that messed up, people are starting to get mad at us because we keep playing. But we're trying to tell people, like, yo, we're not playing for this man. Like, we're playing for the people in our locker rooms, our family, our friends, our fans who believe in us, because we feel like we have a team that can win a championship. So just a lot of other stuff kind of caught up with us. We ended up losing the next round. And I think the NBA was kind of happy about that because, again, the narrative the whole time while we were playing was just a negative narrative of Donald Sterling. And obviously, Mr. Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, fresh on his job, ended up banning him from the NBA. His wife, Shelly, pulls some strings and ends up getting the team sold to Steve Ballmer. And kind of the rest is history.
Yeah. So how do you think things have changed in the NBA in the last decade?
Um, from that standpoint, I just think people are using their voice more.
Mhm.
The whole Black Lives Matter movement, the whole, young black kid, Trayvon Martin movement with the hoodies. And I
Mhm.
just think from that point on, and I think the Sterling situation was kind of the beginning of the floodgates of athletes really stepping into their own and using not only their voice, but their platform as a call for change,
Mhm.
a call for attention. And since then, there's been no going back. Again, I think the NBA is kind of at the forefront of social movement, and they do the best they can. I don't always think they do the right things in some, but I think their heart is in the right place, trying to figure out how to, as such a multi-billion-dollar, conglomerate, how do we do what's right, considering that the majority of our players are African American. So I
Mhm.
always take my hat off to the NBA because they do try. They are progressive. They're at the front of the line of change, and I have a lot of respect for them for that.
Speaking of that, you really use your voice now. You've gotten involved in a lot of political stuff. You talk a lot about Black Lives Matter. I mean, talk to me about the things that mean a lot to you right now.
Um, the Black Lives Matter movement, I wasn't necessarily with that movement from a standpoint of, yes, I think Black Lives Matter, but I think the business behind the Black Lives Matter mantra got a little messy
Mhm.
and funds were misappropriated. And I hated that it kind of gave a black eye to the movement, no
Mm.
pun intended. Because again, I think, Black lives do matter. Black people's lives do matter. But I think, when the money started pouring in and these people really didn't have no idea what to do with it, they started doing some stuff they shouldn't have did with it. So I'm to the mantra of, the movement was great. I think the people we are standing up for were great. But I just think, money got to those people's heads, and I definitely didn't agree to that side. But from a different standpoint, from just, I try to use my platform to speak up for those who don't have a platform or those who don't have a voice. I
Mhm.
think I've been misunderstood my entire life about who I am or what I'm about. And I'm someone who made it out of circumstances that a lot of other people didn't. And I realize that I'm very fortunate for that. So now that I do have the opportunity and the means, I try to help. I try to give back. I try to motivate. I try to educate. And not to say that I'm perfect because I'm still making mistakes along the way, but I'm continuing to learn and try to better myself every day. I got interested in politics. Kevin Johnson, who was a former NBA player, was a mayor of my hometown of Sacramento. And to me at the time, it wasn't so much about the political side of what he was doing, but I just really saw him making a difference in the neighborhoods, cleaning the neighborhoods up, providing opportunity for the youth in those neighborhoods. And it really kind of motivated me to think, like, damn, if he can do it, why can't I do it? So started shadowing him, still in contact with the current mayor, Mr. Steinberg out of Sacramento. And again, I just turned 43 yesterday, and I gave myself a goal back in my 30s that by the time I turned 50, I wanted to run for some sort of office, whether that be mayor or governor or whatever it may be, just because I think it would be different. It would be refreshing. It's not something that people expect. But I know that I can make a difference. So
Mhm.
I say all that to say I still have a handful of years. I still got 7 years before that time is up. But I do more than anything, whether I end up taking on that challenge that I gave myself 10 years ago or not. I just want to continue to show people hope, give people opportunities, and inspire the youth, because I feel like in our communities you have to see it to believe it. Most of the time these kids look up to who they see, and they see guys on the block doing all the things they shouldn't be doing. So I always want to be a symbol of hope, of someone who made it out of tough circumstances, and to motivate other kids, to let them, male and female, to let them know they can too.
Mhm. So, speaking of kids, you have a number of children yourself. You're an amazing father. We'll get to that in a second, but you were very close with your mother, who unfortunately
Yeah.
died of cancer. Talk to me about her death and how that affected you.
Yeah. My mom was super mom. My dad was out doing what he needed to do, provide for our family. So our mom was everything. Um, would go without eating to feed us, make sure we were always clothed and homework was done and ready for school. Um, again, I grew up, I was born in 1980. And if you know anything about the 80s, everyone pretty much did drugs back then. And my parents
Mhm.
were no different. But I think, what I was blessed with was they were able to still function while they were doing that. So we were always fed, we were always clean, we always had clothes on our back, we always ate, our homework was always done. So although I can go to school and you would never know what was going on at home, it wasn't always sweet at home. So my mom did her best to try to make ends meet and be super mom. And unfortunately, she was diagnosed with four cancers. Four cancers, all in stage 4, November
Oh.
1st, 2007, and she died November 27th, 2007. So within 26 days, she was diagnosed. and she was gone. And it was tough because obviously her being my best friend and my rock and my confidant and my drinking buddies at the game. Like she used to come to the games and she'd be in the bars with us after the games, taking shots and hanging out, and kind of almost a team mom in the NBA, which is crazy because
Mhm.
that doesn't really happen. But she was just always full of great energy and such a vibe that losing her so fast was difficult, and it really affected obviously my family hard. But I didn't know how to take it. It was. I don't know. As much as she meant to me, I never cried from her death, and I don't know why. I don't know if it turned me numb or if it did something to me where I don't know. So it's been man, it's been my mom died and my twins came almost a year after that. So my twins turned 14 in November, and it was the 15-year anniversary this past November of my mom being gone. And obviously, think about her daily. The pain never goes away. I just tell people, over time you learn how to manage the pain, I guess,
Yeah.
and continue to try to do right now, because now she's always watching. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anytime I'm doing some shit, I'm thinking like, I know my mom's watching this, so it kind of it keeps me a little bit on point as well. So, anyone who's ever lost a parent, particularly a mom, it's the most devastating thing you can go through. Um,
Yeah. I lost
and
my father too, and it was when I was 15, and it was devastating. And it's interesting you say that because I did not cry for a very long time, and I think that maybe a year later, I was taking a shower of all
and it hits you.
places, and it hit me because I think I was alone, and
Mm,
it was just the most odd place, and I out of nowhere I just started sobbing, and
mm,
then it stopped. And to this day, I kind of don't deal with it. Do you know what I mean? And
mm,
it's very odd. And once in a while, something will happen that'll trigger it, like a song
mhm,
or something will happen. But I
mhm.
really keep it inside of me.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason or any method on how you grieve. I think everyone grieves differently. My
Hmm.
brother and sister, I saw my mom literally zipped up in a body bag, and it gives me chills to this day. And it's just like, there's no way how you know how to deal with that shit. That no one
Yeah.
teaches us how to deal with that. So to me, I just think everyone mourns different, and I respect the way everyone decides to mourn. But yeah, we definitely have similar takes from our situation, because obviously they meant so much to us, but for some reason I still 15 years later have never let that big cry out. So
Hmm.
if it's coming, I welcome it. If it's not, well,
And did your team help you kind of get through that?
absolutely. Team
Mhm.
was great. The organization was great, because at the time, again, I was playing for the Golden State Warriors. So that's an hour and some change from Sacramento. So daily I was driving to see her in the hospital. They let me miss practice, let me just come to games. And then when she finally, when unfortunately, when she did pass, they were very supportive. They came to the funeral. The entire organization came to the funeral. And really that's where my co-host and I now, for All the Smoke, Steven Jackson, became brothers. He had got traded to our team February of 2007, and we made a historical NBA run where we were the eighth seed. We beat the number one seed for the first time in NBA history in a 7-game series. So the very next season, the season starts in November. My mom's diagnosed November 1st. So I'm just kind of out of it. And Steven Jackson was the one. I mean, obviously everyone was very supportive, but Steven Jackson was the one constantly calling me, checking on me, bringing me food, coming over to smoke with me and watch TV. So he was really kind of just my rock. So from there, we went from, competing against each other and becoming teammates to becoming brothers, and the best of friends to this day. Again, we have an award-winning podcast together now, but that's when he and I's real connection started, was when I lost my mom.
Hmm. Hmm. So now talk to me about fatherhood.
Awesome. I had a rough childhood, and I always told myself, and when I would pray, that if I ever had the opportunity to be a father, I would be the best dad possible. And I was blessed with the opportunity to have twins off the rip, which was
Mhm.
crazy. Wasn't necessarily ready for that, and
Was that natural?
yeah,
Wow.
natural. Um, don't think I went from having no kids to 2 kids right away, and the kid part wasn't necessarily hard. It was just obviously having a partner now, a real partner, what I mean? Because at that time, their mom and I were up and down. We were young. She was 22. I think I was 26 or 27 when we got pregnant. I'm in the midst of kind of just starting to break out as an NBA player. And it was just tough. And then all of a sudden, bam, I got two baby boys. So the fatherhood came natural, came easy. To this day, what I'm most proud of is being a father, but just learning how to parent and then co-parent when her and I divorced, and then maintaining and understanding, although we're going through our BS, that the kids are still the most important thing. And I think that's
Mhm.
hard for a lot of people. I'm not an odd. I mean, now unfortunately, more there's more blended and broken families than mom and dad have been married for 30 years type stories. Those are
Yeah.
rare. Those are rare these days. So we're like pretty much everyone else. Where we have a blended family now. So the twins are 14 now, and amazing, and I get a chance to coach them and see them all the time and father them, and they're just growing up too damn fast. And then I have a 4-year-old who thinks he's 14 as well, has a vocabulary of a 14-year-old, which is not a very good thing. That I have with my fiance, and then my fiance has 3 children from a previous marriage. So we have 14-year-old twin boys, 11-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, 8-year-old son, 4-year-old son. So we have
So you
6
got a
kids
lot
from
of
the
kids.
age of 4 to 14. So we're the Black Brady's over here. But is it always easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Does it stress me the fuck out sometimes? Absolutely. But I love it. I mean, and the fact that I remember growing up with my brother and sister and playing with them and fighting with them, and I just know those are some of the fondest memories I cherish. So now that we have 6 and there's yelling and fighting and screaming and good times and bad times, I just know it was something, these kids will always remember, as they continue to grow up. So I embrace it. If I need to get away and get into my man cave and lock the door and get some quiet time, my fiance allows me to do that. And yeah, again, fatherhood is the best, if you can even call it, job, best
Right.
job in the world.
All right. Talk to me about Hybrid TV. You're the CEO of this company. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so hybrid TV is just kind of a platform for cannabis and in all walks of cannabis, not just obviously I think we've come a long way in the cannabis space, but it's not just the old Cheech and Chong narrative of getting high every day. It's cannabis is used in so many different forms in cooking, in health, in fitness, in fashion. So we just wanted to provide or create an opportunity for people to come and display their content on our platform with no red flags or yellow tape. So we're in the process of fine tuning the final tweaks of it, and hopefully we'll be launching the platform soon. So I just kind of call it like a Netflix for cannabis people. And again, it won't just be cannabis only. It'll be music. It'll be sports. It'll be culture. It'll be fashion. It'll be cooking. It'll be exercise. It'll be so many different verticals within the cannabis space. So I'm really excited about this project.
Okay. And on your podcast, it's All the Smoke. You guys are known for smoking pot on your podcast. Yeah.
Sometimes. So it didn't start that way. So, my partner and I, just real quick, how it kind of started. We were both retired, working for ESPN and Fox, and I still work for ESPN to this day, and that's obviously a Disney company. And although I appreciate the opportunity, it's not 100% who I am. I can be that person. I can be in that lane, but I wanted to create something where I felt a little more comfortable, a little bit more laid back, and a little bit more relatable to our people. And came up with this idea, partnered with Showtime right off the rip. But we know Showtime at the time was just like, we can't smoke weed on TV. I'm just like, well, shit, our show's called All the Smoke. What the fuck you mean? Like, you can't smoke weed on TV. Um, so the first season we didn't. But the first year of existence, we won Sports Podcast of the Year. So they gave us a little bit of leniency. So we kind of started sneaking it in here and there and with certain guests. And I think the first guest we were able to smoke with was Snoop, which is obviously very fitting. And then from there, we kind of just realized, okay, we can smoke, but we have to smoke with people that's okay. So obviously we have a Steph Curry or a Kevin Durant, they're current NBA players. We can't smoke with them. But if
Right.
we have, like we just had DJ Quick, the legendary DJ Quick, is an episode we literally just dropped yesterday. He's a music guy, and he wants to smoke. So we smoke with him. So we kind of pick and choose now who we smoke with. But I think the show All the Smoke, and that doesn't necessarily mean physically smoking. We wanted to bring you the heat. We wanted to bring you unfiltered, unscripted, real, raw conversations with some of your favorite people. And we've been very fortunate enough to be able to create an atmosphere where we get the best of the best and the biggest of the biggest. And, my goal has always been to humanize these people. Like I'm fortunate enough to know these people, but I want to show, people, for example, rest in peace to my brother Kobe. I want to show people the other. I wanted to show him, not the mom, but I want to show him Kobe was the father, the businessman, that side. Everyone knows Snoop's a great rapper, but what is Snoop like as a grandfather now? What kind of business stuff is he doing? So on and so forth. So I just wanted to kind of show our fans the other side of some of their favorite people. And I think we've been very successful at doing that. And I'm having a good time doing it.
Who was the best interview you think you had?
Man, that's such a hard question. Obviously I'm going to say Code because first of all, it was a great interview. It was supposed to be a 2-part interview. And then unfortunately, he passed, 2 weeks after the episode dropped. So Kobe was a great episode. Snoop was fun. Kevin Hart was fun. Jamie Foxx was fun. I mean, you name it, we've had them. I just think all of them are so unique in their own way. It's kind of hard to pinpoint like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so fortunate to be able to do the things I do in my post career because I wasn't an NBA All-Star. I was a role player. And I think the reason why I succeeded is because I realized that early on, like, you're not a star. All right, well, be the best role player. Be a star in your roles. Like I was a star role player. And I think that my realness in the game was respected after the game. Now in the media space, it's so much about disrespecting and hot takes and trying to go viral. And I've just never been about that. I feel like if you know enough about a sport, you can have a quality conversation, and within that conversation, you'll have some great moments. So I just think my realness from who I've always been has been accepted well in this next phase of my life. And I'm able to have an award-winning podcast. I'm able to work for ESPN. I'm able to work for the Sacramento Kings and the Clippers. I'm able to start a whole network for cannabis users. And there's a lot of other cool stuff I'm doing. And I'm just so thankful to be giving the opportunities that I've been given because sometimes guys that were stars don't even have the opportunities that I've had. So I'd never take any of that for granted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You guys recently had Will Smith on. How was that? I saw
Awesome.
I saw the episode. I thought it was great. Obviously, I think a lot of people tuned in because they wanted to see what he said about the slap. Mm-hmm.
It was unfortunate because Will that was my first time meeting Will, and Will's someone when I first started the show, I was like, damn, we need to get someone like Will Smith. And then lo and behold, season 3, we were able to get Will Smith. But right from the jump, Will, we shook hands and, he acted like we've known each other forever, which is such a dope energy and environment. And when I tell you, Will explained to a T what he was thinking, what he did after, and how he's been healing, it was unbelievable. But of course, the team didn't want that. It was too real. It was too real it was too real to be to be released. So unfortunately, we only got to show what everyone saw. But when I tell you, he gave us an in-depth encounter, step by step, from what he did from the time that happened, the what he read, where he traveled, who he talked to, who he leaned on. It was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. But unfortunately, we were kind of one of his first coming out interviews because it was right before emancipation. And his team, his village, thought it was a little too real to be released. So I have the unedited version, and I got a chance to watch that, and it was just like the whole narrative, the everything would be if we got to show that. I don't really still think. I mean, obviously, Chris Rock just did his special and talked about it, and probably that would have kept the energy going. But if we could have released what Will said when we had it on the show, I think it would have changed the narrative about what's going on right now. Because even after that episode, his team is just like, yo, Will's never opened up like that to anyone. He's never felt so comfortable. He's never spoke so freely. Thank you guys. They're like, it was almost like therapy for him. And we felt so special and honored for him to even, that's Will Smith, the A-list. I don't care how many people he slaps. It's the A-list, it's Will Smith. So we just felt fortunate enough to be able to, be there in the moment and experience the moment. And I guess that conversation was for the moment. But I just wish it was for the world, because I think it would really change a lot of people's opinion on what happened.
Yeah, it was obvious you guys had some great chemistry for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, just a few more questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you read the comments section of social media?
I do sometimes. And I have been someone known to fire back at times. But I just think, the more and more great opportunities that are coming my way, I realize it's just a test, and I have to allow people to have their opinions. Sometimes it's hard, especially when they're way off. But at the end of the day, their opinions aren't changing my blessings. They're not changing my day-to-day life. They're not changing the money I make. So I just have to allow people to have the misconceptions or the ideals about me or with the way I move, and come to the realization that's their problem, not mine.
How do you feel about the private lives of public figures? Do you, some people think that everything is fair game. Do you agree about that?
It just depends on what situation you put yourself in. And I don't ever try to make myself seem like I'm an A-list celebrity, because I'm not. I think probably at the best, I'm a C-list. But I also opened up my world in reality TV. And when I did that with my ex-wife back in 2009 or 10, it's never been the same since. And I don't even say it in a bad way, but it's just nothing has been private. Obviously, my divorce was very public. Anyone I dated after that was very public. But it also opened me up to a whole new side of viewership and people who don't necessarily know anything about sports. But I could still get people to this day coming up to me, women. Oh, I remember you from the reality show with you and your wife. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's what's up, man. I hope you enjoyed it. You know what I mean? So it wasn't all bad. It got me into wanting to create content. Obviously not content like that trash, but just quality content. But again, it just opened me up to a whole new eyes of viewers and more fans. So private lives, we live in a world today where nothing is really private. You got to try to keep it private and keep it as sacred as you can. And if it is public, you're going to have to work that much harder. So I don't think there's any secret to, there's no secret recipe. We all know relationships are hard, whether they're public or private. But when they're public, it's a little harder. So, you just have to make sure you're on the same page with your partner and prioritize your mental health and your happiness and do the best you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to mention was Athletes versus Cancer, your organization that you created for your mom. Will you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started that organization the year after she passed. And, I just didn't want anyone to go through what we had to go through. So in the past, we've done, health clinics. We've provided information. We've paid for funerals, medication, hospice, you name it, just anything kind of related to cancer. It's kind of sat dormant for the last 3 years because I didn't really have a solid direction, but my team and I have been putting something together. So we want to kind of start a scholarship program for kids who beat cancer that want to move on to college. So I'm in the midst of developing that platform right now. And, hopefully we'll be able to, do some good with that.
Okay, great. And I think you have an event coming up, right? Wednesday, June 28th. You're going to be hosting a celebrity golf tournament at Pelican Hills Country Club. Is that right?
Yeah. So I teamed up with Boxing Wags, Deontay Wilder's wife, the former heavyweight champion, Telly. They do an annual golf tournament. I went to it the first year. I used to go do a golf tournament with my event. So I just asked, do you guys want to team up? And we've been able to team up. So right now we're just kind of getting the dirty work, trying to get sponsors, trying to get people, kind of the grind side of the event. But I'm excited about the event. I have no doubt that it'll be a successful event and it'll be for a great cause. So people be looking out. If you see this and you're in the California, LA area, I'll be posting information on it shortly, and we would love to have you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I still appreciate everything that you've given me today. So I wish you the best of luck in everything you do.